lahat ng barangay na may 10 pataas na impeksyon ay isasara natin pansamantala yung kanilang buong barangay o yung kanilang buong building.
We cannot afford a total lockdown, and we cannot also afford to sacrifice sources of income for our city, our people, when the data does not warrant this yet.
Those were Metro Manila Mayors Isko Moreno and Joy Belmonte. Both Manila and Quezon City, as well as other NCR cities, are recalibrating the restrictions and lockdown measures over a rise in COVID-19 infections.
Local governments are urged to come up with uniform curfew hours. Checkpoints might also stage a comeback. And get this, public display of affection might also be banned. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. More cities are now imposing granular lockdowns in their localities to prevent the spread of COVID-19 infections.
Mayors are putting the blame on either the new variants or hard-headed residents that are becoming lax about the health protocols. Ryan Ang has the big story.
It's not just in Pasay anymore. Other Metro Manila cities have imposed localized lockdowns to curb rising COVID-19 infections. In Quezon City, 14 areas have been placed under a 2-week special concern lockdown. The city tallied more than 200 new cases a day earlier this month. Officials blame it on the new variants. The city has 13 cases of the UK variant and 4 cases of the South African variant. Total confirmed infections in the city already topped 34,000.
Malaki ang kinalaman ng presensya ng mga variants na ito sa biglang pagkalat ng sakit na ito. At yung mabilis na paghawa, yun talaga for me is the sign that we are dealing with something that we have not dealt with before.
In Navotas, 9 areas are under granular lockdown. Mayor Toby Tiangco tells One News The Big Story, barangays should monitor alleys and narrow streets where minimum health protocols are often loosely implemented.
Sa tingin ko, ang kailangan is yung mas mahigpit na pagpatupad ng health protocols, lalong-lalo na yung pagsuot ng face mask doon sa looban, doon sa mga eskinita. Kasi doon sa case ng Navotas, ang nakita namin, ang taas ng positivity rate within the household. Pero pagdating naman sa mga kasama sa opisina na naging close contact, hindi naman mataas yung positivity rate. So ang ibig sabihin is yung hawaan ay nasa loob ng bahay.
Violators are issued a ticket with a corresponding penalty fee. But the city is targeting a new ordinance where violators would no longer be fined. Instead, they will be required to undergo swab testing.
Number 1, marami nagsasabi na wala daw silang pambayad ng fine, no? Number 2, malaki po kasi ang tsansa nung yung hindi nakamask ay mahawaan o makapanghawa.
In Manila, 2 barangays, Barangay 351 in Santa Cruz and Barangay 725 in Malate will be placed under a 4-day lockdown starting later at 12 midnight. Under the lockdown, only authorized persons will be allowed to go out. The Manila LGU says it will provide food for the affected areas in order to discourage residents from going out. The DILG has called on Metro Manila mayors to implement uniform curfew hours so as not to confuse residents who may be doing work or business in another city. The PNP are also considering manning roads once again via checkpoints, especially in areas under lockdown. For News 5, Ryan Ang, we are One News.
Now, let's discuss further. We have with us Interior Undersecretary Epimaco Densing. He's joining us live via StreamYard. Yusek Densing, we were talking about a uniform curfew. This is something that you're asking Metro Manila mayors to consider. How realistic is that? And what's the feedback from our mayors?
Hi, Robbie. Good evening. Well, no feedback yet. They are still in the process of scheduling meetings amongst the members of the Metro Manila Council. Right now, a number of our local government units in Metro Manila have started to increase the hours of their curfew, and that's the reason why we asked them if ever they're going to increase the hours of their curfew, if they can do it uniformly because they are adjacent local government units. It's hard if one curfew is at 10 o'clock, the other one is at 12 midnight. So just to make sure that it's uniform, at least within Metro Manila.
Hey, sir, what about travel protocols? I mean, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about uniform travel protocols throughout the country, not just NCR. The tone over the past 2 weeks really perceptibly, palpably shifted. 2 weeks ago, everybody was talking about opening up. Now we're looking at the projections of 6,000 cases a day if things do not improve. Yung pong usapin tungkol sa uniform travel protocols, does that stand?
It stands, no? Even our health officials are very clear that it's not really the movement of people right now, but the practice of the minimum public health protocols. And again, I repeat, it's the wearing of face mask, face shield, social distancing, and regular sanitizing of the hands. Because again, experts have already told us, our resident epidemiologists and health officials, it's really the way to prevent the spread of the disease or the virus. It's really the practice, strict practice of the minimum public health protocols, even with the new variant. And this was the reason. This was one part of the reminders that our health officials gave our mayors from the Metro Manila Council to ensure strict practice of the minimum public health standards. And we at the DALGs already issued a memorandum to all of our local government units to pass local ordinances that will penalize people moving out of their homes that are not practicing minimum public health standards. It's either you go to jail for a few days, a fine, or most probably a community work or community service.
Okay, Yusek, every time we talk about minimum health protocols, best practices, we're all focusing on the individuals. Nobody is discounting that and nobody is denying that na malaki ang control ng bawat isa sa sarili nilang seguridad, no, sa sarili nilang kalusugan. But what about on the level of government? What is government reconsidering, if at all, particularly with this whole debate about reopening further or continuing this reopening of the economy? Is government, beyond the question of what individuals should be doing, should government be reconsidering the entire push or at least the level of aggressiveness to reopen the economy?
Well, again, the containment strategies of spreading the spread of virus is already there. And what is important right now on the part of government is to ensure that we have a healthy healthcare system, no? And that's what we're monitoring right now. And I think 4 of the LGUs here in Metro Manila are reaching the critical level or high level of their healthcare system. That's what we're trying to address right now. Kasi importante ngayon, the reason why we had to lock down before to contain the disease because our healthcare system was not ready. But right now, we all know what to do. We know the need to increase the bed capacities for COVID-19, including isolation and quarantine areas. And this is the reason why we know what to do right now. And I think the slow opening of the economy will still be a policy that we are going to look at in the next few weeks until and unless the infections reach a level during the lockdown of around 6,000 to 7,000 infections a day. And the healthcare system will not be able to address that level of infections. Maybe we will be considering a much stricter way of controlling and containing the virus.
DILG Interior Undersecretary Epimaco Densing, maraming salamat po. In order to arrest the further spread of the virus, the government wants to inoculate half of the population, or 50 million Filipinos, by year-end. Tonight's big number, 250,000. That's government's target number of vaccines daily by the third quarter. More than a week since the inoculation drive, only about 44,000 doses have been administered. The country has around 1.7 million medical frontliners who have to be vaccinated as soon as possible. To date, the country has 1.1 million doses of Sinovac and AstraZeneca combined. Pfizer has committed to ship 117,000 doses by April.
These are the other big stories tonight. Is the fight against COVID also going to be a war versus love? Seems like it for one senator after the PNP discouraged public display of affection as infections continue to spike. After reports surfaced of a sample in Quezon City testing positive for the Brazil variant, the Genome Center clarifies they have yet to detect the P1 variant of COVID-19. And with the hog industry already losing as much as 50 billion pesos, a Senate panel urges the Agriculture Department to push for a state of national emergency to be declared. These big stories after the break.
Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. For couples, even those who share a bed at night, you might have to think twice about holding hands in public. A new PNP directive bans public displays of affection or PDA. But the senator finds the directive absurd. Patricia Mangune explains.
Since the onset of the pandemic, Filipinos have been constantly reminded, wear masks, wash hands, and observe physical distancing. As the country sees a rise in cases in the past few days, the Philippine National Police is emphasizing on the physical distancing bit. How so? The prohibition of public display of affection or PDA. This includes holding hands or wrapping one's arm on another person. Couples, friends, and even families are covered by the PNP directive.
Matagal na yan, ipapaiktigin lang natin kasi nga part of the NITF at saka yung mga locals are already alarmed.
Some couples do not mind the PDA ban.
Pabor naman, para maiwasan na rin yung pagdami ng COVID kahit mag-asawa. Para iwas na rin ng sa bahay, yung sakali.
Others are asking for consideration.
Mahirap man ng paglakad sa isa. Kailangan hawakan. Sana naman mga bigyan ng konsiderasyon. Po yung magsasyota o kaya sa magkaibigan, parang medyo hindi dapat social distancing po, di ba? Ganon. Pero yung sa magnanay po kasi magkasama naman po sa bahay.
Over at the Quezon City Memorial Circle, a popular hangout place for lovers, the police did not reprimand couples sitting next to each other and engaging in PDA. But they did issue tickets to those who are not wearing face masks. The PNP vows to deploy more staff in public places.
Yes, meron silang nahigpitan, dagdagan yung deployment, lalo na dyan sa mga malls, mga restaurants, no? At saka sa mga public places.
But Senate President Pro Tempore Ralph Recto finds the PNP directive absurd, as kisses, holding hands, and hugs are harmless. Recto says they are waging a war on love, not on COVID-19. He urges the PNP to clarify their directive whether it also covers the mano po, also an act of affection. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
The DOH stresses that COVID-19 P1 variant, known as the Brazilian variant, has not been detected in the country, not yet. This follows reports that the variant was found in a sample from Quezon City. The PDA Genome Center said a common variant detected among sequence samples originated in Brazil, but they explained that this is not a variant of concern. Health authorities also discourage the use of countries of origins to identify variants due to its negative connotations. But they said this will have to do for now.
Alam niyo po, hindi talaga encourage magsabi ng lugal. Pero until such time that the WHO and all these global scientists have come up with a better nomenclature system for the public po, mas madali kasi maalala yung UK variant.
The Senate urges President Duterte to declare a state of national emergency due to the African swine fever. The Agriculture Department is now studying the proposal. Shaila Francisco with the story.
With the African swine fever still affecting pork supply and prices, a Senate panel now wants the Agriculture Department to ask President Duterte declare a national state of emergency. The Committee on Agriculture and Food passed a resolution on Tuesday as the sector had lost at least 50 billion pesos.
Dapang-dapa ang Luzon. So dapat merong talagang ilalabas na funding and support because of the emergency.
Its declaration merits an indemnification fund for hog raisers affected by the ASF. Hog raisers and farmers said pork import tariffs may be used to fund this. Senators are also looking to file a bill similar to the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund.
Kasi ngayon na pupunta sa National Treasury, maski saan pwede ilagay. Pero kung ito is specific kung saan idadala, pwede itong may dala dun sa sector.
Agriculture group Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura suggests that funds be used for the establishment of breeder farms and biosecurity measures. Pork Producers Federation of the Philippines wants the government to allocate 8.5 billion pesos for the indemnification fund. The groups are now urging the DA to act fast so consumers can see lower prices of pork in as early as 8 months.
Kung mabilis ang magiging aksyon at mainggan nyo agad mag-alaga, magdagdag, mag-expand ang ating mga magbababoy, sa loob ng 8 buwan, bababa pa sa 330, 360.
The DA meanwhile says it's open to the Senate's call to allocate pork import tariffs to the livestock industry since they need more funds to battle ASF.
Kung ano lang meron kami ngayon, yan ang ginagastos sa QRF at saka sa bahay, nire-reprogram Secretary. Kasi maraming kailangan logistics niyan biosecurity, PPE, yung rapid test kit.
Agriculture Secretary William Dar has instructed the Bureau of Animal Industry and other concerned agencies to study the proposal. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Time for an extra look at some of the day's big stories. PNP Chief Debold Sinas insists Calbayog City Mayor Ronald Aquino was not ambushed and that his personal bodyguards fired at police first during the encounter. The slain chief executive has yet to be laid to rest pending autopsy procedures by the NBI. Mayor Aquino's family says they have been receiving death threats prior to his death. Quezon City Police insists they conducted legitimate anti-drug operations in Commonwealth 2 weeks ago. At least 40 police officers have already provided their statements on the incident. The NBI is now looking into how police asset Jonaire De Sena figured in the operation despite being arrested in a buy-bus operation herself back in January. The United States military is seeking more ground-based offensive weapons in the Western Pacific, according to a top admiral. This comes amid concerns on China's growing military forces. A budget document shows the U.S. would need more than $3.4 billion until 2027 to boost its long-range weaponry along the first island chain. The region includes parts of the Japanese archipelago, Taiwan, Philippines, and Borneo. Time for another quick break. When we return, the United Nations is appalled over the killing of 9 activists by uniformed personnel over the weekend. A deep look at the conflicting narratives on the massacre later. And prepare for almost a year's worth of basketball. The PBA is looking at conducting 2 conferences over a period of 10 months. The details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The United Nations has expressed alarm over the so-called Bloody Sunday police raids. The incident, which claimed the lives of 9 activists, continues to be hounded by conflicting narratives. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez giving you a front seat to the story.
Ako magsugot, patumba ninyong gobyerno. Pag-enkwentro gani mo, magunit ka armas, patyag yun. Tiwasi. Anong human rights?
Just 2 days after President Duterte gave his kill order, authorities conducted their biggest and bloodiest crackdown yet on the so-called enemies of the state. Armed with 24 search warrants for illegal firearms, authorities on Sunday raided the homes and offices of lefties and activists in Cavite, Batangas, and Rizal, killing 9 people and arresting 6 others. In all the deaths, the police insist that the activists tried to shoot it out with policemen.
Ibig sabihin po ba, Colonel, nanlaban itong mga taong to?
Based po sa report, nagkaroon po ng armed encounter, nagkaroon po ng palitan ng putok between the personnel po natin dito po sa mga suspects po natin.
Among those killed was the Secretary General of the militant group Bayan in Cavite, Emmanuel Asuncion. Asuncion was shot 6 times in the office of the Workers' Assistance Center in Dasmariñas City, Cavite. The police say they recovered Asuncion's .45 caliber pistol in his residence in Rosario, Cavite, that is a town roughly an hour away from where Asuncion was killed. It is not yet clear what else Asuncion fought back with when his supposed pistol was an hour's drive away. Defense Southern Tagalog spokesperson Char Maranan claims that Asuncion did not fight back and even asked the raiding team to show him a valid warrant before he was killed.
The last thing that Manny was able to say was that mga tao rin po kami. He was trying to negotiate.
Maranan insists that all the firearms recovered were planted by the raiders.
Based on their accounts, linagyan ng barel yung ilalim ng kanilang kama, pinicturan as evidence, tapos umalis din.
But in a statement posted on the Calabarzon PNP page a day after the raid, PNP Regional Director General Felipe Natividad claimed that the suspects really belong to rebel groups. Since President Duterte took office, he has been continuously denouncing armed conflict as hindrance to peace and order. It was December 2018 when he created NTF-LCAG with hopes of institutionalizing a nationwide approach towards sustainable peace. But up to what extent will the government's measures be to finally put an end to more than 5 decades of local communist insurgency? But there are mounting concerns that the president's ramp-up rhetoric will result in a ramping up of the body count. I'm Pamela Vasquez and we are One News.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. The Philippine Star reports that a new low-pressure area was spotted 675 kilometers east of General Santos City. Pag-asa says the weather disturbance is seen to bring light to moderate rainfall over parts of Visayas and Mindanao. But the Weather Bureau says the LPA has a low chance of intensifying. Clark International Airport will be opening a new passenger terminal in July. Business World reports that the new domestic terminal will feature contactless solutions such as self-service check-in kiosks and bag drops. The new terminal building can accommodate some 8 million passengers per year. The old terminal facility may be converted into a vaccination hub. And Puerto Galera reopens its doors to domestic tourists after a year-long shutdown due to COVID-19. Mayor Rocky Ilagan tells News 5 that they're no longer requiring swab tests. But tourists have to pre-register before being allowed entry. They must also observe minimum health standards and use the Stay Safe contact tracing app for the rest of their stay.
And here are the other big stories from around the world. A Myanmar nun kneeled before police officers in the city of Makina to ask security forces to spare children and residents. Sister Anne Rose Nu Thong begged two policemen to shoot her instead of hurting others. Thong's efforts were all in vain as gunfire started soon afterwards. At least two protesters were killed. Several others were injured. Queen Elizabeth said the British royals were saddened by the challenging experiences of her grandson, Prince Harry, and his wife, Meghan. The Queen promised to privately address revelations revealed in a tell-all interview, including racism allegations. Meanwhile, Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, told a British channel that the royals are not racist at all.
Time for the big story in sports. The PBA is looking at major changes for the upcoming season, including a semi-bubble setup. PBA Chairman Ricky Vargas says putting up a bubble conference, same as the last season, will be too expensive. They're also looking at having two conferences within a span of 10 months. That's 4 months for the Philippine Cup and 6 months for the Governor's Cup. Vargas says most players so far support the initial plans for season 46.
I think most of them welcome this because it is very difficult to be away from your family for 2-3 months in a bubble and then experience that.
They're ready to dominate once again. P-pop group SB19 released the music video of their comeback single, What? The much-awaited song on self-love and empowerment marks the group's new era, Ikalawang Yugto. The video has taken the internet by storm, with 1.3 million YouTube views, less than 24 hours since released. Icon Ellie Buendia has finally revealed the meaning behind the Eraserheads hit Spolarium. Speculations have it that it alludes to the rape of 80s actress Pepsi Paloma. But in a podcast, Ellie says the song has a very mundane meaning. In 5 words, it's all about getting pissed drunk. The Gintong Alak lyrics refers to an actual Swiss drink, while Enteng and Joey are their former roadies. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Politicians are often accused of sanitizing information. In Thailand, the Prime Minister sanitized the news media. Literally, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha was holding his weekly media briefing in Bangkok. Reporters peppered him with questions. The straw that broke the camel's back, a question on a cabinet reshuffle. An irate Chan-o-cha grabbed his alcohol bottle and sprayed at the front row before walking away. He has had a number of run-ins with the media in the past, including having patted a reporter's head. That's a no-no in Thailand, flinging a banana peel at cameramen and telling media to talk to his standee.
ไม่ต้องถาม
What would you have done if
I
somebody
don't know.
sprayed alcohol
Part
over
of the
you?
context there is that Prime Minister Chan-o-cha is a military general.
Oh, okay.
So nakakatakot din yun kung mapikon sa iyo yung Prime Minister.
I would have said thank you for disinfecting me and doing the job for me. That wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Good evening.